Hey guys, so in this lesson I'm going to show you how to take our stretches and compressions and our translations and put them together, and how we can actually graph using the information from the formula. So the key concepts for this is the amplitude, period, phase shift, and vertical shift can be determined from the equation, and I'll show you how. And then we're going to graph the functions by applying those transformations, and I'll show you how easy it is to graph them, or how I do it and how you can easily do it without Desmos. Let's see how we can easily sketch a graph with my simple strategy. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to describe the transformations that must be applied to the graph to obtain the graph of g of x, and I've given you the equation right here. We're going to state the amplitude and period, state the domain and range, and then we're going to sketch it. So just looking at it, I can see I'm kind of going to do A and B together because that's how I like to set it up. So I like to go across and see what actually the numbers are doing. So the first one I see is that the amplitude is -2. So that means we have an amplitude of 2, but it is reflected in the x-axis. And so it has an amplitude of 2. Let's remember that. The 3 tells us that k equals 3. So our period is actually 360 divided by 3, which is 120. So we have a period of 120 degrees. The -30, if we were to, tells us that we have a phase shift. And it's to, because it has a negative, it's to the right 30 degrees. And the last thing, we have a vertical shift of -1. So it's going to move down 1. Now, when I go to graph this, well, our domain, if you want to do that first, the domain is x is in the set of real, because it always is with sine and cosine functions. But our range, our middle of the range is at -1, but our amplitude is 2, so we're going to go up 2 from there and down 2 from there. So if we're down 1 at -1, the highest it's going to be is 1, and the lowest is going to be at -3. So we know that we have to have y between -3 and 1. And that gives us all the information we need to actually graph it. Okay, so first thing I do is I figure out where my midline point is, and then where my absolute max is and my minimum is. And I usually, when I do it on a graph piece of paper, I draw my axis, but then I dot those lines in. So I'm going to know I'm going to be at -1. So this is my midpoint. And so my sine or cosine is going to go across that line. I know my maximum is at 1, so I usually put that line in as well. And then I put my -3 in. So you can see that I've taken care of my vertical shift and my amplitude just by drawing those lines in. Next thing, our phase shift is 30 to the right. Now we are doing a sine function, so I know it starts right on -1, and we're going to the right 30. So I'm going to plot that point. That is our starting point right there. And then I know that I have to end at 1. It's a period of 120. So 30 plus 120 gets me to 150. And then basically what I do is I break that into 4 pieces. So I know that where my midpoint is and where my max and my min is. So between 30 and 150 is 90, so I know I'm going to cross there. My max, because it's been reflected, our minimum actually comes first and our maximum comes second. And notice how I've kept it in between. So the 90 is midpoint, 60 is halfway between 30 and 60, and the 120 is halfway between 90 and 150. So it's breaking it into those 4 groups. Now when I go to graph it, I just try to connect those 4 points. And you can keep going if you want. And there you go. That is how I graph it. I plot my important lines first, my midpoint, my max, and my min, and then I try to stay within those lines according to my period and my phase shift. I hope this helps. I'll see you guys later.